I look like if Eazy-E was retarded and white. That's what I look like right now. We're doing a little bit different of an approach here. The sunglasses are to protect my eyes from the harmful rays coming down from these giant studio lights hitting me. I do have them set to a different color today. There's no edits or filters on this besides the logo I'll have popping up and the subscribe button. Please subscribe to the channel. If you want to help support me financially, I'll put my Patreon in the description below too. Today's video is going to be kind of about a different topic, a more philosophical one, and that is why I believe in manifestation, why I think it's real, how I think it's impacted my life, my kind of experience with it. And if you don't believe in it, hear me out. Right now I'm listening to some binaural beats, some isochronic tones in these headphones while I speak, so I can't really hear myself speak well. So if I sound like a deaf person randomly throughout this video, that's gonna be why. I needed something to like calm my mental state for a moment. This seems to help a little bit. It helps me get my thoughts organized. So I'm gonna try it out while we talk. These are just some mediocre Pioneer wireless headphones. We're not sponsored by Pioneer, but if you want to sponsor us, Pioneer, please be my guest. Or anyone else. I'll take anything at this point. Please help me. Help the channel. Please, give me your money. Off topic, but this is going to offend a lot of people off the bat. I'll make a whole nother thing about offending people. But I think that streamers are kind of like modern day panhandlers in a way. I think they literally just beg for money on this, but instead of on the side of the road, they do it over a camera, and that's what we're doing here now. So we're taking it a step up, and we're begging for money, not even in a live format, but in a pre-recorded one. So once again, if you want to help out my channel, my livelihood, if you want to help me eat, help me sleep at night, I'm going to show my Patreon below. There's no updated content on there. It's all old shit, but there's a collection of old shit if you want to see it. I don't know if I should be saying shit in the first 3 minutes of the video. I think there's something to do with monetization, but we don't even have monetization yet, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I hope you guys like the new lighting in here. But we're going to get started. We're going to talk about manifestation. I spent about 10 minutes here and wrote out some thoughts. I can't even hardly read them because my handwriting's so bad. But some like talking points to kind of keep myself more on track this video. Once again, if you just want to sleep to this, be my guest. I really hope that my headphones aren't like echoing into the... Let me see. Okay, no, I think my noise gate cuts them off. And if it doesn't, too bad. This is raw, unfiltered. Unfiltered. It's so unfiltered you can see my cringe vape tricks. That I do sometimes because I think they're cool. Or because I'm just extremely bored. I'm bored a lot in life, and boredom with me does not equal anything good. So, that includes vaping. This is bad. Don't do this. Anyways, manifestation. Why I think manifestation is real. Well, obviously, the first reason is going to be because Jim Carrey thinks it's real, and we gotta worship Jim Carrey, and because that man's a millionaire. He's obviously, everyone who has money is right about everything. Isn't that true? Fuck. I'm acting a bit. I'm throwing my sarcasm in here. I think it's the glasses. They're giving me like more confidence in being a sarcastic asshole. Oh, there's another swear word. We just messed up this recording again. But anyways, Jim Carrey. What a man. I don't know if you've heard the story about Jim Carrey writing himself a check for $1 million, but that's where I'm going to start with this raw, unfiltered talk. He wrote himself a check for $1 million, and I think in a year or two, he ended up getting the check for $1 million. Obviously, it was the check he wrote himself wasn't going to, it was going to bounce. It wasn't real, but he got a movie deal within the time period he kind of manifested and made that money. And that's it. That's all he ever did. That's the only thing he manifested. I'm kidding, but he's a strong proponent of manifestation. Just check out some of like what he says about it. It's honestly intriguing, if nothing else. In my own way, I don't have $1 million, but I feel like I've kind of manifested my destiny for sure. When I was a child, I'd say 10 or 11 years old, when I first started playing the game I got that plaque behind me for, I had saw this item in the game, and it was called a fire cape, and I was like, oh my god, that's so fucking cool. I swore again. Damn it. Fuck. And I found out that people sold these things. I was like, wow, they're making, at the time I thought they were making like $10 for this. It only takes 2 hours. These people are making money playing this game. And eventually, fast forward about 10 years, I became one of those people. And that was after thinking I could never do that or become that, much less do it for other people and make money from it. I was a bit late to the ball game, but I feel like everything we manifest to a degree that's so large and grand, such as that of an idea, does take some time in my experience. Another thing I manifested was just being a YouTuber. When I started my channel in 2006, I made on and off videos. Being a YouTuber was always something I wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily wanting to be a RuneScape YouTuber, but I'll say I've accomplished that. And it was about 10 years later I started taking YouTube seriously and gaining traction once again. I feel like there's almost a 10-year rule from my experience on these weird long-term manifestations I've done. See, I can't even read the next bullet point I put on this because my handwriting's so terrible. Okay, yeah, just YouTube as a kid. I thought that said yodeling. I'm definitely not a yodeler. I'm definitely not the kid in Walmart yodeling. So I don't think that was on my list of things to manifest as a child. But I feel like every career path I have, if I'm serious about it, if I'm dedicated to it, if nothing else, this isn't always smoke and mirrors and voodoo. Manifestation is like the physical desire to want to do something. You are what you say or what you think about the most, and that's because you're putting forward the most effort in your life towards that goal or towards that specific task. And like I said, this doesn't have to be magical. This could be just manifestation in its physical form is a real thing. And one thing, I wanted to touch on was, like, for example, if you believe you're going to work yourself out of a problem, have you noticed you typically do work yourself out of a problem? I mean, there's so many times I've been almost on the brink of complete poverty or destruction in life and my career paths and everything else, or even just as simple as, like, failing a course, or actually, no, I'm sorry, I've never failed a course, but I've almost failed doing many things. And, I always pull myself out at almost like the last perfect moment in a way. It feels like everything, that you want to be solved gets solved, and that's probably because you're thinking about it so much, and just physically you're putting more effort into it. So whether you believe in like a more spiritual meaning of manifestation or not, manifestation I feel like is real because you're putting that physical grind and into that mindset that you're constantly thinking about mentally. So on to the topic of more esoteric things here, and the voodoo manifestation I want to get further into that I actually do prescribe to. I feel like there's a lot of evidence. It's not hard evidence. Actually, there is a lot of hard evidence. I'm going to go over some of it. I'll also go over anecdotal evidence that I've personally witnessed. First with the anecdotal stuff. I did a video called Meditating for Aliens. This got like 150,000 views on my main channel. It's just a purely video about what it says, meditating for aliens. There's a CE5 protocol. We invited a guy out to do this with us who claimed to be able to summon crafts. And we thought this guy was a joke. Like, we didn't even have cameras ready because we thought we weren't going to see anything. He bet us $100 we'd see something. And we would just like scoffed at it, and we ended up seeing something. And this guy, sure, this guy was pretty fucking wild. Like, he had every conspiracy under the sun, like about Dave Chappelle and the Illuminati and SSRIs. Like talking to this guy was like listening to an Alex Jones like talk show. But I feel like what's weird is we did see things that I could not otherwise explain, and a lot of it we didn't capture at first because it was like we didn't even have our equipment ready. Some of it we did. It's on that video. But there was lights going in different directions that were very high up in the atmosphere, weren't blinking, weren't planes. We even had apps like that could show us where satellites were and whatnot, and they weren't on that. There were, at first, what we didn't catch, there were these lights that would flash up and then flash in, and he would even take a laser pointer at these things and he would circle them. And what you would think was a star just sitting there, he would circle one of these things, and it would just, after he circled it, it would just start moving. What you thought was literally a star. And this is what I witnessed firsthand with a friend of mine. And there were some other crazy things. There were sometimes multiple parallel lights in the sky that would move around. And so anyways, all this crazy stuff happened. So we didn't get $100, long story short. And it was a very bizarre experience, to say the least. We went back out to the same area the next night, actually. Literally the next night. Same area, no cloud coverage, nothing. And it was just me and my friend at this point, and there was nothing there. A lot of that video was switched over for comedic purposes, like that wasn't his real property, that was my friend's property. A lot of the storyline isn't exactly, you know, put into place properly, but because I tried to make it a little bit, you know, lighthearted and funny. But we did go back there off camera the next night because I did need to film some stuff still there that I had missed the previous night. Well, we tried the meditation again without this guy. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. Dead. Silence. Same time of night. 2 hours. Nothing. And then I met up with this guy again. The second time I met up with him was at a different location entirely, different city entirely. Once again, I started seeing things. So I think that made me start believing that these were real. And he would always say some cracked shit like, you know, I think it's either God or the devil or something. And I'm like, he's like, what do you think it is? Like, how do you explain that? Or the government is what he said. And I said, man, you know what I believe in is manifestation. I think that this guy was so heavily invested into this thought that these things were real, because he would go on tangents about them for hours. That's all he talked about. This is what he lived for. I think he believed in them so much that, like I was saying, the voodoo manifestation was beginning to kick in around him specifically. I think that he was actually altering somewhat the physical reality around him. And so I started around this time having the same thought process, and I thought to myself, you know, what if I truly deep down believe in this as well? So I went to a couple different locations, you know, with mild success, some weird things I couldn't explain but weren't necessarily that crazy. But I kept doing it. I kept, you know, believing more and more because I kept seeing more things. And it's like the more I saw things to prove my belief, the crazier things got. And I guarantee you, I do this as like a party trick now when people come over sometimes. I'll be like, hey, come outside. I'm going to get in the mindset here where we're going to see something that you probably never seen. And 9 times out of 10, it happens. I'll walk out of my backyard with the right mindset. 90% of the time, I will see crazy light shows just out here. Now, there's not a lot of light pollution, so this probably won't work anywhere, but literally like what seems like flares going across like half the atmosphere in a matter of 2 seconds, sometimes red, sometimes yellow, sometimes green, sometimes white. Once again, parallel moving objects that look like stars that aren't picked up on satellite trackers. Objects that move one direction and then just completely fade out of view. You can tell what planes are in the lower atmosphere, all of that. So it's like, as I believed in this more, it was, I don't know if it's like, you know, meditating for aliens per se, but my perspective on it is I think that the fact that I believe in it so much, and I have people who have witnessed this with me, like my friend Mahler, who comes over every couple of years, being one of them, and we've seen some crazy cooked shit. I just think it's the mindset I put myself in and the expectation to actually see something almost every single time, and it actually has happened. So another like anecdotal thing obviously was the career paths I've taken and the 10-year gap in span of, you know, how I've achieved those, and maybe that's just because I was working towards those because it was in my subconscious so much, not as much spooky voodoo. Another one that has happened was me and a friend were in Denver at this place called the Lumber Baron Inn. We'd got an Airbnb there, and it was like half off for the night. It was our last night in Denver, and we're like, we're gonna get this Airbnb. And we look at the registry on this place as we enter, and it's like all the other like units that are being rented out for the night are like double the price of ours. And so we're walking up these creaky old stairs. It's like a renovated old kind of mansion thing. And I say jokingly, I was like, you know, what if this place is haunted? I pull out my phone. Kid you not, I look it up. I look up the room we're in. There's like documentaries of like, not Ghost Adventures, but other off-brand shows and everything else. People turning lights on and off like on command in this room because 2 people had been murdered in this room over the course of like 20 years. One stuffed under a bed. Both of their like murderers never found. Some creepy shit, you know. So I pulled out my camera, I was like trying to film something at the time. Started snapping photos everywhere with a flash. And I had seen some of the photos these other people took, and it gave me the inspiration for this. And they had this foggy mist in all the photos, and that same distortion came up in my photos, and you could kind of see some of the similar faces in those photos to mine. But the craziest part was, I think we were like so freaked out at this point that like we weren't really thinking much about it, but it was in our subconscious. So the next day my friend woke up and he had these like crop circle like grid patterns all down his arm. Not bed bugs, like these were parallel red dotted lines and perfect spirals going all up and down his arm that lasted like over a month. The dude worked in a hospital. No one he was around, not even like doctors, could really like just firsthand say like what that was. They're like, what's wrong with your arm? And he was like, I don't know. Do you know? No. So I've had some weird accounts along with other things while I was filming videos to actually mock the paranormal, but I feel like the weirdest things only happened when we had, you know, someone in the group or myself like really kind of afraid or like a real believer in this stuff who would come along with us. And I feel like that's when usually the crazier stuff happened. Now, when it was just like me, ironically, nothing would happen because I was a big skeptic, especially back in the day of all of this stuff. But I feel like that would account for a lot of, you know, what people say is poltergeist activity, which is literally people who think they're actually haunted, like so their conscious is so willing to think they're haunted that apparently, you know, it affects electronics around them and everything else. And a lot of what we use even to, you know, or what people who actually are into the paranormal use is electronics, like spirit boxes, like voice recorders, infrareds. All of that stuff is electronics. So if you really have a heightened belief to you, I think that kind of manifests in ways, especially around like these electronic devices. I don't necessarily think it's like a spirit or blah 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 blah, but I feel like that is my prognosis on it. Is it's like The subconscious mind is a lot more powerful than I believe we know it is at this point in the game. So the same thing happens with like my this sounds cheesy, but my RuneScape goals. Like, I'll say something in a video, like I made a video about how, oh, one day the 3 combat fire cape could be possible. Fast forward 8 months, it's possible. Something happens, makes it possible. Same thing with like when I mentioned a 1 per infernal, then fast forward a few months and it happened. Same thing like anything I've conceptualized to do in that game, it's came to fruition. Even if it's the most crazy thing ever, if I can't figure it out at the moment, I feel like I've capitalized on every dream I've ever had, which I thought was far, far fetched at the time to happen. Besides maybe like less than 2, and you know, we still got time. We got a lot of time. So all of my concepts that seem outlandish have kind of just happened in a way. Sometimes almost like fallen into my lap. It's very weird, and I feel like a lot of this is seizing the opportunity in the small windows where these things happen in your life. And like when you see, once again, significant growth and kind of like your manifestations actually pulling up in your life, you got to do something with them. I feel like if you just let them sit there, they're obviously not gonna have any effect. But when you notice the little things start increasing that you one day, you know, really hoped for, and you seize that opportunity, from my firsthand anecdotal experience, that came with great success in my life. And right now, just as an experiment with this video, which I'll probably forget about in a year if I keep up with this channel, because I plan on uploading pretty frequently here. I'm gonna say I want this channel to hit 40,000 subscribers, an average of 10,000 views a video by 2026. And I feel like if I do it in the current format I'm doing it now, with consistent uploads and shorts, I feel like that's not that unfeasible. And I think that I'm gonna think about it so much that I'm gonna do it. And whether it's voodoo or just pure sheer willpower, it's going to happen. As well, the format I'm doing right now, logistically, I'm like pulling a slot machine with all these shorts I'm poking out. One's gonna hit, it's gonna come back to the channel, it's gonna compound with interest, and it's just gonna increase everything. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for right now with this channel. So, once again, subscribe if you haven't, and share this video everywhere, because it's such a great video. Or fall asleep to it. Either one's good with me. But once again, you know, if you're not feeling it, you can kind of feel, I feel like, does that even make sense? You can kind of feel when something's like, something you've been holding in your subconscious is coming to fruition. Some people go against the grain and they're like, I'm gonna do this no matter what, no matter how bad it feels or how wrong it feels. And usually those people end up failing, and they don't know when to back out and realize that failure is imminent. So quitting is sometimes bad, quitting is sometimes good. I feel like you just kind of, that's where your intuition comes into play, and kind of that manifestation you might have held on to that whole time really will help you out, because that leads into the intuition itself. So once again, these are all just my thoughts on this. Obviously, you don't have to prescribe to everything I'm saying here. If you didn't know, I made a video a while back on global consciousness as a meme, but once again, my jokes all come from a place of truth. I kind of believe in that. So there was like a lot of studies done. This is not anecdotal. This is like actual studies done at universities by professors. And they've shown that random number generators, specifically more so, once again, electronic ones, seem to be slightly manipulated when one person thinks in a certain way, such as a 50-50 toss-up machine was seen to have maybe a 51-49 over a large sample size when someone was thinking of heads constantly. Even in a physical coin toss, I think in the very early stages of these kind of thought experiments, they were still pulling out weird averages, which in a large sample size should be closer to the 50-50 margin. And these were very large sample sizes, and they were very skewed for the size that they should be. Now, once again, that's just 1%, but 1% and say a sample size of 10,000, 100,000 flips is a lot that should, probability wise, never have came to fruition. But I mean, once again, probability is probability. If you have a monkey pressing like a series of buttons 1,000 times, he's going to figure out how to program a computer if there's an infinite amount of possibility. So it's hard to prove in a scientific setting probability and the effect on probability when literally it is probability. Anything can happen. Another one of these I saw, I want to say it was at like Harvard Research Center. They were doing, they would have someone who was trying to go to sleep, and they would have this robot that was programmed to do purely random movements on a piece of paper with like a writing utensil attached to it, and it would make noise, right? And so they would have someone sleeping, and this robot would be moving closer towards the subject, and subconsciously it was like this guy willed this robot to get away from him because he was trying to sleep and it was making noise. So randomly, this robot should have kept running into him if it was sticking to its original algorithm. But because of maybe an external factor such as this man's sheer manifestation of wanting to sleep and not being woken up by this robot, it tended to stray much further away from him in what was supposedly randomly generated patterns. So there is a lot of actually scientific studies, I feel like, that are backing this manifestation concept and kind of the ability of consciousness to at least somewhat control the world around us, because probability is in everything. You know, it's in the very minute details, but it is everywhere. So that's kind of another reason. There's a lot more of these studies. You can even look into remote viewing and how people have seen things portrayed in the future, but maybe the things they were seeing, such as Ingo Swann and the undocumented CIA cases, maybe the things they were seeing that were coming in the future were actually just something that they manifested themselves, you know? And for instance, Ingo Swann, I believe, saw rings around Jupiter in a remote viewing session, which is basically you pinpoint a target and you picture, you draw what you can see, what you can smell, what you can hear in like a deep meditation. And it wasn't discovered by NASA till years later that there was these rings around Jupiter, although very faint. They did exist. Maybe there weren't those rings. This is a long shot, but maybe there weren't those rings around Jupiter before Ingo Swann willed them to be. That's probably not real, but as an example. So another thing I feel like with manifestation, I feel like it could explain a lot of religious miracles, religious beliefs, such as prayer, for instance, having an effect, because prayer is literally a form of manifestation. They're trying to pray for an outcome, to manifest an outcome, you know, to God. And maybe the sheer will and the belief in God that especially extremely religious people have, like this man who believed in aliens had about these lights in the sky coming to fruition, maybe because the belief is so strong, the manifestation is so at its core, that it in fact does have at least a slight effect in the favor of what they're manifesting. Same thing with any kind of structured belief, Buddhism, witchcraft, Wicca. This right here is called a fetish. No, it's not like an actual fetish, but this was a tribe in New Mexico makes these, and they believe they have, for instance, healing power, and you have to feed them, and they carry them around with them and believe that they're like sacred, and that the type of fetish it is. This is a bear, has a certain healing or aspect to it that is specific to the animal type and the one that you choose. So it's like almost in every religion, a huge basis of manifestation exists, and that could maybe explain a lot of the miracles that have happened throughout, such as the Bible and just even firsthand accounts that you hear about today in the 21st century. I feel like just deep down, if someone is truly believing in something, it does, at least to a point, make some kind of impact, whether it's small or big. I feel like most of the time very small. But anyways, I feel like it's also what you have to believe deep down, like subconsciously in your soul, that makes that impact. So for instance, if I have anxiety that I'm dying, realistically, I don't want to die. Because if I'm having the anxiety that I'm dying, and the anxiety is telling me I don't want to die, I want to live. So I'm not actually going to be dying because I'm thinking that I'm dying, even if I believe that so strongly, because it's not my true belief. My true will and belief is to live, technically, in that instance. I feel like it's not your frontal thought, but it's definitely the subconscious there more than anything. Okay, let's try and read some more of this. Okay, I've had some more anecdotal experience with this as well. There's been a lot of studies that kind of correlate with this. It seems like people know when something bad is about to happen. I don't know if you've heard this, but there's a lot of like near-death accounts where people say they, like, before they get in a car wreck, before a car just swings out from like a curve on a road and hits them, they have this feeling of dread in them, like something true, like they know the next thing that's going to happen. Maybe that's not like them predicting the future, but it's them somehow manifesting it in a way. Weird thought there, but I don't know. I feel like this has happened in a lot of cases where things go wrong. People just have that, you know, intuition, especially when negative things happen. And maybe it's not that things are predestined and pre-planned to happen, but it's that your subconscious wills it to happen. I don't know. That's a little bit far out as well, but side thought. Why I wanted to kind of talk about that is because it gets back to a point where I used to have these dreams where, like, I would be in the dream, and in the dream I would wake up and pick up my phone and it would be ringing. I'd wake up in real life right after that dream ended, and like in a matter of 10 seconds my phone would ring. So I used to think, you know, maybe I was predicting the future. I have magical powers to predict the future, but maybe instead, by subconsciously thinking so hardly and like believing that this dream was so real at the time, I willed reality for someone to call me somewhere in the universe. That's probably a crazy thought as well, but it happened so many times and with so many other distinct sounds that I was like, this has to be like weirdly coincidental. Like, I would wake up to like door knocks. I've heard this is a very common one to wake up to, that weren't really there. They were like from my dream. But then within the next 10 minutes, I wasn't expecting someone, and I would have like someone, like one time I had this guy selling football tickets knock on my door, which has still only happened like once in a year at most. Like, I don't know. It's very bizarre. It's like that, or maybe your subconscious mind kind of picks up on the things around you that are going on, the probabilities of things happening. And it's like, okay, it's this time of year, it's football time, maybe someone's going to knock on your door, and like you're dreaming of it, and it's such like a, maybe your brain is like such a like much larger probability computer than we think, or we're manifesting it to happen for someone to walk up to our house, not the neighbor's house, in the next 10-20 minutes, you know, because we're believing in it so much, especially in that dream state where you think everything is 100% real and set in stone, unless you're lucid dreaming, of course. But that's another topic. But yeah, once again, the more people I had around me that were scared, and the scenarios I recorded in that were supposed to be mockumentaries for paranormal things, I noticed more weird things happening. Just another piece of anecdotal evidence I decided to write down here twice for some reason. I kind of believe, I guess I have the set belief that that consciousness kind of creates the universe and not the other way around. I think that's the core of this entire video, and the core of manifestation in general is that statement right there. So think about this. The dream situation I had earlier. When I was in college, I had this idea to, never had the opportunity to do it, but I was like, you know, if I could have these dreams where these sounds would happen, and these things would then happen in real life within the next few minutes, whether it's just my monkey brain recognizing patterns or it's something, you could maybe experiment with this, with a very specific experiment. I don't know if anyone's done anything like this, but it made me think about it. So what if you put someone into like a guided meditative state or a hypnosis of sorts, had them kind of fall asleep, and hypnosis, they can kind of describe what they're seeing, what they're doing. They could be describing their dream, and you would have another person in the other room with an object. You know, say he has an assortment of 10 different sounds. He can hit a tuning fork, a gong, you know, he can do a buzzer, and you could have this person describing their dream in one room, and you could have the guy in the other room, you know, hit the instrument and see if somehow the two correlate, like the dream correlates into real life, but at like a later stage. And you don't tell the guy on the other side really what's happening until it's already been recorded in the other room. That, or something like you just bring one instrument into the room while the person is asleep, so they don't know what's going on. And maybe that one instrument, they're dreaming, describing their dream, even though not in a full REM state, maybe sort of in one with hypnosis, and they kind of describe the one instrument the person brought into the room because that's the one he's going to hit. He's already predetermined it. He's not going to go back into the other room and grab another one without even seeing it, like a gong versus a triangle versus a tuning fork, etc., etc. And maybe something in the dream will lead up to a gong. Weird thought experiment, but it would be cool for someone to test that out. I just need to find like an actual licensed hypnotherapist or something who can put someone into that meditative state, because I think that's going to be the hardest thing of experimenting with something as crazy as that. Once again, I probably sound like a schizophrenic in this video talking about these things, but I do have like strong beliefs, and everyone does. And well, some people don't. I mean, there's atheists who, well, they believe in the law of the universe that's so far proven. So I mean, I guess they don't believe in it. They kind of know it. It's, to be fair, it's factual at this point, but there's a lot of things I feel like that are yet undiscovered and unpublished, obviously, even in the scientific community, or that we can't yet even conceptualize them existing. And this is, once again, sci-fi has proven many times to be science later on. Like black holes were in sci-fi. Black holes ended up being a real thing. They say time travel is theoretically possible, but in sci-fi we didn't even know that back in the day, and there were books written about time travel in the 1800s or even earlier on than that. So in a way, like, manifestation and psychic abilities have played a huge role in science fiction, and maybe someday we'll see that hit science. And maybe why it's hit science fiction first, think about this, is because we've manifested these things to exist from a large basis of the human conglomerate believing that they were real through reading these books, watching these films. Maybe black holes didn't exist actually until enough people believed they did, or subconsciously thought about them through works of art. Crazy thought there as well. I'm going out on a limb with a lot of these, but I don't know. I like thinking outside the box. I do this a lot. So, you can control your dreams and know you're dreaming in a lucid dream, but has anyone ever tried lucid reality? Maybe someone has yet to figure out the key on how to do that. Control reality itself, like Neo in the Matrix, of course. And then you have a lot of placebo medical-based studies where placebos have done wonders for people. There's even some rare instances where placebos, probably unrelated, but maybe have cured things such as stage 4 cancer. There's case studies in the 60s of this rarely happening. But there's a lot more, you know, obviously with mental health and things involving the psyche, and even some things like heart rate and obviously blood pressure. There's hypnotherapy for blood pressure, for addiction, for physical addiction, not just mental addiction. That has proven to be helpful in many scenarios and many case studies. So this is a different type of video, but I wanted to go over, you know, why I believe in manifestation, not just like in its physical nature and its ability to put grit and hard work into someone, but in its ability in a way to have spooky consequences or spooky actions come about. Anyways, I'm Rendi. This whole thing was raw, uncut. I hope you enjoyed once again. I don't know how long this one's going to be, but hopefully long enough. Maybe 45 minutes again. I can't see the time from here. Also, yes, I'm wearing sunglasses inside. Please subscribe to the channel. Check out the Patreon below if you want to see some old good content. Maybe one day, if this gets big enough, I'll start updating it more. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the support. Not everything is going to be on the topic of mental health on this channel, but a lot of it will be, because I'm just going from the experiences and the things that have intrigued me over the years and that I've dealt with over the years. So like today, I used to have a huge belief in manifestation, more so than I do now even, but I decided to write out some thoughts on it and give a little bit of insight to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm going to hop off this solo cast. And until next time, see you guys then.